But this isn't like a showcase kind of painting. This isn't like a, okay, I'm gonna flex my skills kind of painting. This is a, I'm going to remind my body that we like this. This is fun kind of painting. That's what this is for. Okay, so I am about to start painting some things for my upcoming book, and it's like not project things, it's more illustrations that need to be in the book, like demonstration illustrations for techniques or just filler illustrations that make it pretty, but that aren't, the stuff that I've already turned in to my editor. The thing is, this is a project, right? This is like work. This is painting that is for my job, which all painting is fun. And painting that has work attached to it, any kind of creativity that has work attached to it, can sometimes still feel like work, That adage where it's like, as long as you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life, is not true. It is not true. And that's not to say that the work is bad. That's not to say that the work isn't also, it can't also be fun. It just is to say that work is work. And even creative things that fill you up, that make you so grateful to be alive, that make you so grateful to be able to do the thing that you're doing, especially creative things that you are getting paid for, and you're so privileged to be able to do it, still feel like work. They still have the just kind of like, oh, do I have to? Anything that's attached with anything that has responsibility or deadlines attached can have this feeling, right? And when you have feelings associated with creativity, that makes it harder to get to your desk. And it's one of those things where you can sit and berate yourself. You can sit and say to yourself, oh man, why am I like this? Why aren't I grateful? Why can't I just do the things that I like doing? Or why can't I just get myself to do the things I want to do? I have ADHD, so this is an issue generally across the board. You can sit and stew about it, which I have done many a time. Or you can say to yourself, yes, a predicament I am well acquainted with. Anytime there is some kind of responsibility attached, even with a thing that I like, or anytime there's some kind of urgency, anytime there's some kind of deadline. So like if you're looking at creativity in terms of, I only have 10 minutes and then that's it for the rest of the week, that's urgency, right? That's pressure, that's expectation. And that can start to make even the things you love to do feel just so heavy. Paintbrushes get real heavy, my friend. They get real heavy, especially if you attach expectations to them. So the thing that I am doing to help make painting for the illustrations for my book feel not quite so heavy is I'm doing like a runway painting session, meaning I'm like warming up first, like I'm stretching out my painting skills by painting something that is not going to have a whole lot of expectation. It's not going to have a whole lot of guidance. I only kind of generally know what I want to do, and I want to do that with you. So here's the deal. I'm going to look up a reference photo. Haven't chosen it yet. I'm going to open up Unsplash, which is my favorite royalty-free reference photo website. Love using beautiful pictures, especially when I'm not infringing on other people's copyright. And so I'm going to look up some kind of reference, and then I'm going to do a quick little sketch. And I'm going to do it in this sketchbook. So interestingly, this was actually the sketchbook that I used to paint the first drafts of the projects in my other book, in my Mastering Light with Watercolor book. So some of these projects made it into the book, some of them didn't. Some of them did though. And I just kind of like set this sketchbook aside, but it still has a few blank pages in it. So I'm going to use these blank pages with a fun little sketch today. First thing is I'm going to look up Unsplash. I'm going to do it on my iPad so that you can also see. What I'm going to do is just kind of scroll through. This is a folder that I've had for many years where I basically just saved it and said, oh, I'm looking at something in here and I thought to myself, I could paint that. And saved it, and I'm seeing if anything sparks any kind of inspiration. I'm not looking to paint a very specific project right now. I'm really just looking to make some really interesting marks, to get some color on paper, to see if I can experiment for maybe 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. I don't even, like, it doesn't even have to be that long. So maybe actually instead of this, what I'm looking for is a still life. If I can get some kind of still life photograph that I can just kind of take some shapes from, that could be fun. Yeah. I think, do I want to do fruit? Do I want to do flowers? I don't really think that I want to do flowers, but anything that is sparking, anything up here, actually. Yeah, I could do that. Okay, I'm going to do this. This is the photograph I'm going to use. And I'm going to use it to just, like I said, it's just a quick warm-up. It's just to like rev my engines a little bit, so to speak, so that when I can jump into work painting, I already have some kind of fun painting in me, so it doesn't feel like quite such a harsh transition. So I'm not going from like everyday life that's not painting straight into work painting, so that I can like have some stepping stones into it. That's kind of the idea. So it doesn't have to be too complicated. I'm just going to set this to the side and pull out my sketchbook and open to, so my sketchbooks for reference, like this was a very specific kind of sketchbook because like I said, I used it to practice projects that I thought I might want to put into my book. And not all of them made it. Some of them, a lot of them actually in here didn't. A lot of them changed when they got to the book. So not all of my sketchbooks are like this, where like all of the projects look pretty well painted. Most of my sketchbooks look more like this, where the pages are just like random. And that's okay. It's okay if your sketchbook looks like that. Okay, so I have some binder clips. Whoa, this is a giant binder clip. I don't even know if it's gonna fit on here anymore. It fit on the page underneath it. There we go. Okay, gotcha. Maybe I'm gonna do it like this. And the other binder clip, I got these binder clips from like a Creative Box years ago, so I don't even know where to link these, by the way. Yeah, I think like this is fine. Maybe I'll just do it like this. And I'm still gonna use, I have some, these are paints that I used last week, and they're not any particular kind of paints, they're just on my desk, paints that are on my desk. So this is a little dropper that I like to use to activate watercolor. Just put a little drop on it, especially if you're using dried cakes. And then the paint will activate before you start painting. And I'm going to use my Da Vinci Cassiano round size 6 again. And I'm just going to start with some marks. Marks meaning I'm not trying to paint specific things. I'm just trying to be loose and get paint on paper. So typically when I recommend, I was going to start with the blueberries because they look easiest, but I'm actually going to do those last. I recommend when trying to paint clusters of stuff like this, start with the bigger things first. And so I'm going to do some quinacridone rose, and let's see, maybe I'll move this mixing palette over here. So here's some quinacridone rose. And some opera pink, just to add a bit of like brightness to that pink. And then I'm going to try to make it look like that grapefruit orange. And so I'm going to add a bit of this Hansa yellow light. And that's a little too orangey, so I'm going to add just a little more pink to it. There, that looks like corally grapefruit like pink. Okay, but remember, I'm not trying to get anything right here. I'm just trying to get marks on the paper, right? So I have to remember, even if this looks nothing like the photograph, that's fine. It doesn't have to look anything like what I'm trying to paint. I'm just trying to get marks on here. So I'm just gonna do a little mark like that. And like this. That's like half of the grapefruit, but with some white space. Sure, why not? And then leaving some white space in between those two halves. There's a little bit right here. Okay, so there's that part of the grapefruit. Then I'm going to leave a bunch of white space and just use, this is called New Gamboge. This is like a yellowy orange color. And just trace the outside and make it really wobbly on purpose. Because it's okay if my lines are wobbly. It's okay even if it wasn't on purpose. But sometimes in order to know that it's okay that your lines are wobbly, you need to do it on purpose once in a while. So I think I want to make the inside of this grapefruit a little darker now that it's still kind of wet. So I'm going to mix some opera pink with some quinacridone rose and just like tap it in some spots to add some variation. Down here. Sure, why not? Okay, looks good to me. And then the side of this kind of looks like that. Does it look like a grapefruit? Not really. I don't know. It does because I say that I want it to be. But then maybe I'm going to take some really, really watery of this like pink mixture. Super, super watery. And just like tap it in between the yellow and the fruit. And that kind of makes it all like blendy. Like some of the colors blending into this white space, which is okay. I actually kind of like that. Doing that on purpose, like encouraging paint to blend a little bit, makes it look artsy. And now I'm gonna mix a little bit of scarlet in here. I was gonna use these colors and then I just reverted back to these Daniel Smith colors, so that's okay. But I think on the edge of this, like the rind, it's kind of in shadow in the picture, but I'm just gonna extend it a bit and paint a little bit of scarlet in there to make it slightly darker. And then maybe tap in a bit of the yellow. Like I said, I'm just playing around. I'm not specifically trying to paint anything in general. I'm just taking this reference photo and then making some marks and being super loose with it. I don't care if anybody sees this. I mean, you're seeing it. But this isn't like a showcase kind of painting. This isn't like okay, I'm gonna flex my skills kind of painting. This is I'm going to remind my body that we like this. This is fun kind of painting. That's what this is for. So I think then I'm not gonna be super realistic with the rest of the fruit here. I think I'm just gonna do like just a little yellow lemon over here. Just marks. This one looks maybe a little more realistic, like I'm trying to be more realistic with it, but with these I'm just not. I'm just gonna add a bunch of stuff. And maybe I'll take some of this green and paint some leaves. A really easy way to paint leaves is to do with your brush, you're barely holding it to the page and then you push down and then you lift. So it's like thin, thick, thin is a really easy way to think about doing leaves. And the thing about doing leaves too is that leaves come in clusters. Oh, that was still wet, so that kind of went all over, which is fine. Maybe I'm gonna do some leaves over here. Anyway, leaves come in clusters, so if you want them to look realistic-ish, then painting a cluster of leaves as opposed to just one at a time, that's one way to go about doing that. Okay, So I got some lemons over there, and then I'll do some blueberries down here. Okay, berries can be super fun. I actually just remembered this. Berries can be super fun because they have a bunch of like shadows and stuff on them. But one of my favorite way to do berries is like, okay, you paint the berry that's kind of misshapen with a little bit of white space. But then you rinse off your brush and you paint another berry, except you're like touching it just barely. So it's like the paint from this berry moves into the other one, and then it creates this kind of like texture, like watercolor texture between the berries. That can be really fun. I'm not sure that I'm really executing it exactly the way that I want to be, but that's okay. Because once again, this isn't exactly a lesson, and it's also not supposed to be strictly work, right? I'm just playing around. I think I'm not using the correct paintbrush for painting the kind of berries that I was hoping to paint, so that's one thing to keep in mind. But with watercolor, generally, one really cool thing is when you encourage blends and like when you encourage the paint to bleed into a different area, a different white space area, it can be really cool to watch the paint do that. So that's a fun thing to think about. Okay, all of those berries are like all together. I want to put some over here. And I am really committing to using this paintbrush, even though it is not working out the way that I want it to. And that is fine, honestly. Especially if you're trying to paint loose, sometimes using a paintbrush that does not do what you want it to do is the way to get yourself to be looser. So that's something to keep in mind. Sometimes I will use like a foliage brush, which is a brush that is supposed to give you foliage texture. I'll use a foliage brush to try to paint things because it's just inherently messy, and it's a really good way to learn how to tolerate messy strokes because that takes practice. And tolerating messy strokes is, especially if you want to paint looser, that's how you paint looser. It's learning how to not immediately view mistakes as mistakes and instead view them as, happy little accidents or beautiful opportunities to re-envision what it is that you're painting. Okay, I think maybe I'm gonna do just, I don't know, some more leaves perhaps to kind of fill in some space here. It's not exactly, but again, I'm not like trying to do anything except get paint on paper to warm myself up for when I eventually paint some illustrations for my book. Okay, maybe I'll do a few more like blueberries up here. And then just like, I don't know, to round it out, a few up here. Those are so misshapen, and once again, that's okay. I am okay with them being misshapen. I'm going to use some water to paint and just like spread the paint a little bit. And then one thing that I always like to do is, well, first of all, because I'm just not letting this go apparently, I'm going to take some quinacridone rose and mix it with some of this yellow. And then I'm going to paint, this is mostly dry, so I'm just going to like paint a little texture on top of here. Like grapefruit texture in between, just like little dots. I don't know, I might have just messed it up, but once again, especially because I am not actually trying to make this into a specific project, I don't think I can mess it up. Which is excellent news for me, and for you. Okay, I'm just gonna be done. The last thing that I was gonna say that I really like to do is I really like to add splatters. So I'm going to take, I think some of this blue and just splatter it by the blueberries. Try to. Like up here. I got a little bit of the blue on the grapefruit, which is fine. I think I'm just gonna splatter the blue and the green, and I'm gonna try not to get it on the grapefruit, but the thing about splatters is that they kind of just go everywhere, even when you're not trying. So, but splatters are like a surefire way to, if you're painting something and you just think it looks like hot garbage, adding splatters to it makes you feel like a real artist. So there you go. Thanks for coming along with me on this ride, on this journey to revving myself up to do some actual creative work. And I hope that, listening to me ramble about all of this was helpful in at least some way. And I hope that using the idea of like a creative runway, like revving into a creative activity, even if it's not a creative activity specifically, even if it's just work, right? Like using creativity as a way to transition out of some activity and into another activity, I don't know, could be useful. So anyway, thanks for watching and happy painting, and I'll see you next time. Bye.